So today we're going to dive into a massive topic, one that quietly shapes everything, from the stuff you buy to where you can work, and even the chances of countries going to war. We are talking about regional economic integration, and we're going to chew on this one central question. Are these giant trading blocks building bridges, or are they just building new walls?
But to really get a grip on where we are now, we've got to go back to where this whole idea started. Just imagine it for a second. It's 1945. Europe is, well, it's in ruins. After two world wars that just tore the continent apart, they were facing this almost impossible challenge. How do you not just rebuild, but make absolutely sure this kind of horror never, ever happens again?
And the answer they came up with was to team up. So let's look at how this idea of cooperation went from being a really desperate move to a global economic powerhouse. The first steps were pretty careful, but they were super strategic. In 1951, 6 countries, including old rivals France and West Germany, did something totally radical. They decided to pool control over their coal and steel industries. Think about that, the very things you need to build tanks and guns. By tying their economies together, they made going to war with each other not just unthinkable, but practically impossible. And that one small step just snowballed. It led to the Treaty of Rome a few years later, and this grand vision of a true common market was born. This whole process they kicked off actually has a name: regional economic integration. It sounds complicated, but it's really just about countries in the same neighborhood agreeing on rules to make it easier for stuff, people, and money to move across their borders. It's the fancy term for what we usually just call a trading bloc. Right, but here's the thing. Not all trading blocks are the same. Not even close. The level of cooperation can be anything from a simple handshake agreement all the way to something that looks a lot like a single unified country. The best way to think about it is like a ladder. And here it is. This ladder shows you all the different levels of commitment countries can make. Each step you climb up this ladder means giving up a little more of your own individual control in exchange for hopefully a deeper partnership. So let's break down what each of these rungs actually means. Okay, so at the very bottom, the first step is a free trade area. Members get rid of trade barriers between themselves, but they each do their own thing when it comes to trading with the rest of the world. Take a step up, and you've got a customs union. Now the group acts as one solid unit, with one single trade policy for all outsiders. Go one step higher to a common market, and it's not just goods moving freely. Now workers and money can cross borders too. The next big jump is an economic union. We're talking a shared currency, coordinated economic policies, the whole shebang. And at the very, very top, a political union. That's where countries start coordinating foreign and defense policy, and the line between separate nations gets really, really blurred. So you have to ask, why would any country want to climb this ladder and give up some of its power? Well, the potential rewards are huge. Let's look at the case for getting together. Okay, the whole economic argument really boils down to two big ideas. The first is trade creation. It's the good part. Let's say France is great at making wine and Germany is great at making cars. You drop the trade barriers and boom, French people can buy more awesome German cars and Germans can buy more amazing French wine. New trade is created. Everybody wins. But there's a flip side, a danger called trade diversion. What if Japan makes even better, cheaper cars than Germany? Well, if the bloc puts a big tax on Japanese cars, French consumers might end up buying the German cars anyway, just because they're tax-free. So trade has been diverted from a more efficient producer on the outside to a less efficient one on the inside. That's the central tension, right? So, for people who are all for this, the argument is simple. The benefits are just way bigger than the risks. For you, the consumer, you win with more choice and lower prices. Politically, a united bloc has a much louder voice on the world stage. And, like we saw with Europe, when your economies are tangled up, you're a lot less likely to start a war. It opens up opportunities for people to find jobs and for companies to work more efficiently. And honestly, it's just a heck of a lot easier to get, say, 20 countries to agree on something than it is to get all 164 members of the World Trade Organization on the same page. But it's not all sunshine and roses, of course. There are some really powerful arguments against deep integration, and they raise serious questions about jobs, about fairness, and even about a country's very identity. Remember that danger of trade diversion? It can mean you end up paying more for something than you would on the open market. But the issue that almost always gets the most heated is jobs. When you tear down the barriers, companies will often move factories to member countries where they can pay people less. That can be amazing for the country getting the jobs, but it can cause a lot of pain and job losses in another.
And at its core, every single step up that ladder means giving away a piece of your national sovereignty, your country's power to make its own rules for its own people. And, this quote really hits the nail on the head. It gets to the cultural heart of the whole debate. This isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about identity. There's this real fear that if you cooperate too much, you could lose what makes your nation special. And that's a really powerful argument for a lot of people. Okay, so we've talked theory, we've talked pros, we've talked cons. Now let's see how this all actually plays out in the real world with the major trading blocs that are shaping our planet today. Just take a look at this map. It really shows you how this idea has spread like wildfire. From North and South America to Europe and Southeast Asia, pretty much every country on Earth is part of at least one of these regional groups. And this little chart here gives you a great snapshot of just how different they all are. You can see how various blocs have picked different rungs on that ladder of integration we talked about. The European Union? It's way up there at economic and monetary union. But then you look at the USMCA in North America. It's a free trade area, a much looser partnership down at the bottom of the ladder. And others, like Mercosur and ASEAN, are somewhere in the middle. Everyone's making a different calculation. The European Union is really the grand experiment, isn't it? It's the most deeply integrated bloc on the planet. But that deep integration comes with some serious challenges. I mean, when you give up your own currency, you can't just print more money to solve a national crisis. A lot of countries found that out the hard way during the Eurozone debt crisis. It's the ultimate test of that trade-off between having your own control versus having regional stability. Meanwhile, in North America, the model is totally different. The USMCA, which replaced the old NAFTA deal, is basically a free trade area. And it's a great example of how these agreements change over time. It brought in much stricter rules, for example, on car parts, requiring more of them to be made in North America by workers earning a higher wage. And why they do that? To try and pull manufacturing jobs back into the member countries, a direct answer to those job loss fears we were just talking about. Which brings us all the way back to our big question. On the one hand, these blocs have created peace and wealth inside their borders like never before. But on the other hand, they create a world of insiders and outsiders. So are they building economic bridges that bring us all closer together? Or are they just building new kinds of walls between huge global teams? That's the question we leave you with.